And in this training segment, we're going to talk about trigger actions. The actions we'll be talking about are double action trigger pull, single action trigger pull, single action only, double action only, internal firing pin mechanism. Record. Okay, we're going to demonstrate the difference between single action and double action trigger pull. Double action trigger pull is when we squeeze the trigger of the handgun and when we cock the gun with the trigger. That's double action. Single action is when we elect to or have to cock the gun first to perform that function. That's this. Now the difference being is this. For self-defense and concept, we want to use a double action trigger pull because a double action trigger pull has a harder or more firm trigger pull, maybe 12 to 15 pounds, thereby preventing an accidental discharge of the gun or lessening it. A single action trigger pull, when we cock it, either because we have to or want to, sets up a shorter trigger pull, which is a 2 to 3 pound trigger pull, therefore enhancing the possibility of a accidental shot, because all you'd have to do is take a light pull of the trigger and the gun would go off. So pointing the gun at somebody or using it even at a range with the gun cocked sets up the potential for an accidental discharge. And in this segment we're going to demonstrate the use of snap caps. Snap caps are spring-loaded plastic devices like imitation bullets or that we put in the chamber or cylinder of a handgun to protect the firing pin from damage and also allow us to practice different training and handgun user events at home. So before we do the shooting techniques and demonstrating these, we're going to put in snap caps. So in your training kit at home you should have snap caps. So we load the handgun with snap caps right there. And we would do that before we pull the trigger. When we want to dry fire, now dry firing is when we pull the trigger of the handgun for training purposes to enhance trigger control, and we do this protecting the firing pin mechanism with snap caps. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 642 double action only revolver with a 2-inch barrel. In this segment we're going to demonstrate a double action only trigger pull on a revolver. So a revolver double action only trigger pull. Typically like this handgun I have here, a typical self-defense handgun. You can identify it as a double action only because it doesn't have a hammer on it. Loaded with snap caps. Now, in a double action only trigger pull, we have this system where by design of the mechanism we have to pull the trigger double action each time. Quite common in small self-defense revolvers. The downside for some people could be having the strength necessary to pull the trigger. This requires a sometimes 12 to 15 pound trigger pull. That could present a challenge, but that is a double action only trigger mechanism. Right. This is going to be a demonstration of a Smith & Wesson Model J frame with a double and single action trigger pull using a shrouded hammer. So we'll load the handgun. And the issue on how this type of handgun works is this. I can use it as a double action. And notice it has a shrouded hammer, which means there's a shroud over the hammer so that the hammer doesn't snag on anything, example when you put it in your pocket. I can also cock the hammer if in fact I want it to, okay? But that said, so we have an option here that we don't have on a double action only, is we have a concealable handgun that can be used both single and or correction, both double and single action. Okay, this is a double action with this one. You notice with double action trigger pull with the shrouded hammer, I can fire it this way, or with the shrouded hammer I can cock it also. It facilitates the hammer underneath the shroud, and I can use it single action. So this really has the best of both worlds as far as functionality use and still allowing the hammer to be hidden from snagging on anything in your pants.
Okay.
Alright, now we're going to demonstrate the trigger actions on semi-auto handguns. First of all, we're going to load the magazine with a dummy round, a snap cap. We're going to check to make sure the cylinder, or rather the chamber is empty, and it is. Okay. Insert the magazine. Now, firing mechanism. This gun, the Smith & Wesson, can be operated two ways: double action or single action. Also on a semi-auto, if you see a device called a decocker, that's this device on the side of the slide. A decocker is actually just simply this: a device that when the hammer is cocked and you want to uncock the gun and move the gun into a double action trigger mode, you activate the decocker. That lowers the hammer into a double action trigger mode so that you can start from a self-defense position with a double action trigger pull. So double action, single action. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate the Sig Sauer P239. Now with the Sig Sauer P239, this is a conventional semi-auto with a decocker, and so the first shot is double action. The sequential ones, or the shots after the first shot, are single action. For example, the first shot is double action. When the gun cocks itself to fire, it sets it up into a single action gun. And the rest of the shots until the magazine is empty is single action. Okay. Now, if you want to decock this gun, here again is a decocker. That's this device right here. Lowering the hammer, decocker. So a decocker is on a handgun that has a hammer, I should say on a semi-auto handgun that has a hammer, and you want to lower the hammer to a double action mode. Now, this is an example. This is a Springfield XD 40 caliber. This is an example of an internal firing mechanism or an internal hammer, because on the back of the handgun you will not see a hammer. So what we're going to look at here is the difference in recognizing an internal firing mechanism on a semi-auto and one with a hammer, which would probably have to have a decocker on it. So an internal firing mechanism device is when you pick up the semi-auto and there's no hammer on the back. Okay? This type of mechanism actually works this way. It has a firing mechanism that when the gun is cocked, actually the gun is cocked when the slide goes forward, chambers around, the handgun is cocked, ready to fire. All you have to do is pull the trigger. Examples would be like a Smith & Wesson, have them, a Glock, the Springfield XD. So this is a type of firing mechanism that's advantageous to a lot of people because it has a trigger pull that's the same each time. It is not single or double action, and it is usually about a 7 maybe to 8 pound trigger pull or less. So that's the nice thing about this type of handgun, is that it's easy to use and functionally easy to use. It doesn't have a, if you notice on the side, it doesn't have a decocker because there is no need for one. Put the magazine in, slide forward, chamber the round, fire the gun. Okay. Right? Okay. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, with this handgun, it does have a decocker. So there we're recognizing that decocker again. And this one works with a double single action, meaning double here and single here. Unlike this handgun, which, see now you see the difference. One has a hammer, one does not have a hammer. This is an internal firing mechanism which has a consistent trigger pull. This is an example of a firing pin mechanism that is a hammer mechanism that has a single and double action trigger pull and a decocker on it. That's pretty good.